My name is Juan Pineiro, and we are here today at the Regional Dairy Center in Stephenville, Texas, and we have the pleasure to be with Mike Connor, nutritionist. Mike, would you like to go ahead and introduce yourself, tell us a little bit about yourself?
Hey, I have been working with this facility here since its inception, and I don't know exactly when it started. My personal background is that I've been doing consulting for about 42 years. I have a PhD in nutrition, started out with beef cattle and migrated into dairy.
So, Mike, we know that nutrition has a huge impact on cow health, and when you formulate these diets and prepare the TMR and deliver it, you consider keeping cows healthy. Can you explain us first a little bit from the ration formulation aspect, how you feed your prepartum animals with regards to anionic salts and why you feed anionic salts?
Let me start with the basic ration first. The basic ration is mainly going to be forages, except for the proteins that I have coming in and some of the minerals that are coming in a package that's prepared for us and delivered by a local feed mill. The forages are important in order to try and get dry matter intake up as high as possible. Basically formulated around corn silage as the main forage source. And then I have grass hay, which we raise, and that's included in the ration to bulk it up. The reason that I want to bulk it up is because when those calves are delivered, then there's a vacuous space in the cow, and I want to try and minimize any opportunity for DAs. I do use anionic salts. The anionic salts come in a liquid form. We use magnesium chloride that's in a molasses carrier. It is my main and only chloride source, which is adjusting my DCAD level in the rations. My DCAD levels right now are sitting right at about negative 6 to 6.5 milliequivalents. And I monitor that by pulling ration samples periodically. But my main focus is having the urine pHs done on a twice weekly basis. And then I utilize that information to adjust my anionic levels either up or down to achieve the urine pHs that I want. My urine pHs that I'm striving for right now are about a 5.75 to maybe a 6.1. So the reason that may be a little bit low for some folks, but the reason I'm that low is because we are heavier into Jersey. We're all crossbred herds. So because of that Jersey influence, I want to make sure that I have a lower degree of risk associated with any kind of milk fever opportunities that we could be incurring.
And you mentioned also that dry matter intake is very important for you, and I think that might be especially important in early lactation cows, right? Fresh cows. How important is forage quality and digestibility in that group of animals for you, and how do you try to maximize dry matter intake in that group of cows?
The forage quality is extremely important. If the quality of the forage is low, I can't feed as much and can't get the energy density nor the protein intake by the cows. I think health is going to encourage better health for the cows. So the forage quality's got to be at the top of the list. But at the same time, at the top of the list is got to be those cows that are coming in and going through the pre-fresh period. I am really focused on body condition scoring.
Yes.
And I want cows, and I want a perfect world. I want ideal body condition scores. I realize I'm not going to get that. I'm going to get some that are too fat, and I'm going to get some that are too thin. Yeah. I'd much prefer animals that are in a moderate body condition, yes, as opposed to a heavy body condition. Yes. Because I find that if I can get cows in that range, that I will reduce significantly the risk associated with some of the transition issues that we run into, regardless of what that issue might be. And at the same time, dry matter intakes, it's been proven both practically and through research, that dry matter intakes are promoted by a cow in adequate body condition. A cow that's fat will typically go through some fatty liver opportunities, yes, which will then diminish dry matter intake opportunities. And that's the first step that will lead to metabolic issues for a transition cow.
And let me ask you this question. some dairies, although they may aim to have a moderate body condition score, sometimes they may have some overweight cows, and sometimes in some dairies that percentage may increase a little bit more than desirable. And in that case, it's not all, but some dairies may decide to feed some protected amino acids like protected choline that help to export the fats from the liver. Have you ever considered that? Have you ever fed protected amino acids? Do you see value?
Okay, so from protected amino acids, the first protected amino acids that I focus on is basically methionine. The methionine will help as far as fat metabolism in the liver as well as to the whole body, and I use that first and foremost. I have come in with rumen protected choline before. I have found that I have a, how can I say, a moderate degree of success in utilizing it. That's the reason I tend to focus more on my body condition scores. Yes. And I work real closely with my herds in order to try and make sure that they understand that cows are moved more towards a ration that is suitable, not so much for milk production, although that's important, but mainly to address the body condition score. Because a lot of times a cow, even if you move her to a lower energy diet, lower energy density diet, she'll maintain her milk production. But at the same time, she won't have the propensity to get as fat as quickly. Yeah. So I've had other friends of mine who are nutritionists also, and they put the rumen protected choline into the rations for the purposes which you're trying to address, and they have some success with it. I just tend to, I will use it if I have to, but I know I have used it here this past summer, through this summer and into last year, and because I was able to get my body condition score straightened out, I was able to take it out of the ration and not have to feed it, because it is an expensive ingredient, and it's, to me, more cost effective and easier to manage the cows rather than throwing something like rumen protected choline in, which serves as a band-aid rather than a fix.
Makes sense. And what can you tell us about feeding minerals and vitamins? We know that some vitamins and minerals, they help as antioxidants. That does help the immune system. How important is that to you? Do you feed some vitamins, minerals in pre-fresh and fresh cows?
I'll always have vitamins and minerals in the rations. It's very important in the fresh cows, and I have to rely more on research. A lot of the work that's been done mainly with vitamin E and increasing the level of vitamin E, and at the same time making sure that the level of selenium is adequate. And based upon some of the work that Bill Weiss has done, I put selenium in a, how can I say, an organic form into my transition diet, whereas I normally use inorganic selenium in the rest of my diets. There's not been a lot of work to show that it's necessarily advantageous to have inorganics, but rather than run a risk of having an animal succumb to problems that could have been cured, I go ahead and I keep that selenium in there. The vitamin E I will normally keep at about probably close to 2,800 to 3,500 IUs per head. My A and my Ds I normally keep at about 125, 150% in that time period. My trace minerals, I do use inorganic, some trace minerals, but I also use organic, especially in that particular phase of the lactation, because it's so important to make sure that the trace minerals are available to the animal and will hopefully reduce risks associated with the metabolic diseases.
And Mike, we also know that having adequate amount of protein is important, especially in early lactation, right? Because some of the protein we feed will help to have more microbial protein, and having more microbes basically will help us with digestibility of the fiber. Do you have a specific aim for, say, crude protein and metabolic protein in fresh cows, early lactation cows as well? In what I'm striving for in close-up cows is, of course, it depends upon the kind of animal that you've got, whether it be a Jersey or a Holstein or something in between. I'm ranging anywhere from 1,200 grams of
metabolizable protein for a Jersey, up to 1,300 grams of metabolizable protein for a Holstein. And I try to, that's going to be dependent a lot upon what the dry matter intake of the animal is. In order to achieve that, I will use some natural protein sources, both from the feeds that are being fed, corn silage and the grass hays, but also then maybe canola or soybean meal. And then I'll also include some protected methionine and maybe even some lysine if it's needed. At the same time, I will bring in some rumen-protected vegetable sources in order to try and keep that metabolizable protein level up high enough. My metabolizable energy that I'm striving for, I really don't want to gain body weight at that stage, but I want to make sure that it's adequate so the cow doesn't have to metabolize a lot of fat unnecessarily and basically cause liver problems. So I try to keep my ME level at such that it's going to just basically zero out any weight loss or any weight gain. It's really the metabolizable protein that I'm striving for. Crude protein could range anywhere from, say, a 15%, maybe up to a 16.5, or maybe even a 17, because at the same time, I don't want to overfeed protein because that costs energy to get rid of. But you got to look at what the cost of that protein is. I mean, is it a farm-raised protein that is really cheap and I can afford to feed? Or is it something that I have to procure and cost me money out of pocket? So those things have to be considered also.
And with regards to energy and also related to energy starch, what is more or less your energy and starch content pre-fresh and in the fresh period?
If it's corn silage, the starch level is not per se my driving factor, it's my fermentable starch level.
Okay.
My fermentable starch level will be sometime, and again, it gets back to what the fermentable fiber is too. Yeah. But my fermentable starch levels could vary anywhere from, say, a 16 to 17 on a pre-fresh diet, maybe up to 20, 21. Okay. On my fresh diet, I tend to keep it at about the same level, but I try to bring in more fermentable fiber. Could be alfalfa hay, could be a silage if the silage is good enough quality. I really like to focus on trying to keep my forages in a wet form. In other words, a silage form, be it corn silage, be it alfalfa silage, or be it, say, some kind of a wheat silage, something of that sort. Because the wetter feeds will, if they're good quality, they're going to fit the picture anyway, but typically wetter feeds will digest at a faster rate and more complete than what a dry feed would be. And I want to increase dry matter intake, so the other thing that goes hand in hand in that is that if I put a dry feed in there, a dry forage, that dry forage has to become hydrated before the bacteria can start digesting it, which then has the potential for lowering my dry matter intakes.